We're gonna wing it around. We're gonna wing it around the yard.
Wing it around.
Oh, yeah. 3, 2, 1.
Welcome in. We're winging it around the yard here. Husker Extra podcast. First one as the 2021 football season gets underway. I'm Chris. There's Parker. There's Steve. We're all in the office. We're all in the building. We're all in separate rooms in the building. I'm out in the main newsroom, probably annoying all my coworkers right now. But that's nothing.
Is it hopping? Is the newsroom hopping?
Young Luke Mullen is next to me right now. Our new prep writer, grinding away.
Welcome to the show. Welcome to the show, Luke.
Parker broke a story. Parker broke a story shortly ago that we'll get to. Lauren Stivrins.
Didn't break if he talked about it on his podcast.
Okay. Yeah,
well, it's kind of like
maybe it's not the greatest tease ever, but I guess
if you move your right shoulder, Baz, all of our faithful viewers can. Well, if you turn and get a good long look at the boss, there he is, right there, Clark.
There's Clark Grell. There's Clark Grell over.
Whoa!
I'm picking his nose right now.
Whoa.
All right. Well, let's get right into it.
The listeners will be thrilled by that.
Yeah, I'm sure they will be. Lot to talk about. Had our first media availability yesterday with the football team. Scott Frost for about 10, 15 minutes. A whole passel of players, about 10 players, spoke yesterday. Adrian Martinez among those, Cam Taylor-Britt, Cam Jurgens, others. And we heard a lot of stuff. There's a lot of stuff on our website right now from what we saw yesterday. There's a lot more coming as fall camp really gets going here over the next few days. And so that leads to the age-old question, and I'll open the floor to you guys. After what you heard yesterday, what do you kind of want to learn this week as fall camp gets going for Nebraska football?
Go ahead, Parker.
Well, I think, one of the things that was interesting that Frost said yesterday was just that line about wanting the position battles to be wrapped up such that they exist. It's a little bit lighter on that front this year than maybe some other years, just because it's a relatively veteran team. There's a lot of veteran teams out there this year with the extra year of eligibility. But, Frost said, well, at least in-house, we want to know sort of who our guys are earlier. That does not mean we're going to get a depth chart next week or something like that. Hey guys, we figured out who the right guard is. We're excited to tell you on August 5th. That probably is not how it's going to go. But I am curious to sort of talk to some of the assistants, talk with Eric Chenander, just about where they feel like they are early in camp. And from that sort of determination standpoint of who are the guys going to be and how many players are there realistically that have a chance to make their way in the rotation. I mean, Ty Robinson yesterday said he thought they could go 3 deep at all 3 spots on the defensive line and have productive play from like 9 guys. And so I'm just like, I'm interested to sort of see what the next step is on the personnel front over the next week or so, because that's something that they want to sort of move forward more quickly this year than they do most years.
Simple.
Okay. Oh, the idea is, there's a lot that I'm interested in, but I just want to mention something it's just an overarching thought. It was really apparent that they've, like what Parker's saying, suggests that they're pretty settled in. I mean, they have veteran players now. There's not a lot of questions going into camp. There's always some, but they can get them resolved pretty quickly and then lock in pretty hard on Illinois. That seems like a great advantage. It seems like a great advantage to have a staff in its 4th year. Players are ingrained, the veteran players especially are ingrained in the systems. It seems like a major advantage to have a 4th year starter at quarterback. What I'm getting at here is there's really not that many excuses here. I mean, there's really not. And Frost is of that mind too. And I think he's of that mindset. As far as positions that I'd be looking at closely running back's number 1. Frost said he wants one to emerge.
I thought that was super interesting he said we'd prefer not to have it be by committee.
Oh God, it is music to my ears. If there's one thing in this world, there's a lot of things I can't stand right now, but one for sure is a committee approach at running back. Ohio State doesn't do a committee approach. They get dudes that can carry a lot and run for 1,500, 1,700, 2,000 yards. Wisconsin does that. Nebraska used to do that a lot, going back 25, 30 years. Now, committee approach tells me you don't have a guy. That's what that tells me. So hopefully one of those guys establishes himself. You'd think it would be Marquis Stepp maybe, or I guess, Gabe Irvin gets a lot of run. Maybe Sevion Morrison would surprise us, but it would be good to see somebody step forward. And that would be one big thing I'm looking for. Baz.
How about the big boy?
Marquis Stepp? Oh, yeah, that would be cool too. I mean, he's got to prove himself as an every down back. I think that's what there is. On a personal note, I did run on the Amos P. Godby track, where he's from in Tallahassee. It's a blue track. It was really cool.
How fast did you run on?
What? Not
How
fast.
Did you run? Not fast.
It was really hot.
You grinded through though. You're a grinder.
I'm 55 years old. I'm not.
You are 55. You're 55.
Were there indentations in the track where Jacquez Yant had been running before he came?
No, but there was a huge tractor tire on the football field.
Did you go flip that thing?
I did a few times.
Yeah, let's go. Got that shirt off and started flipping a tire.
No, my shirt was on.
No,
did they have any pavers for you to do presses with?
No, I don't even know what pavers are, Parker.
This was simple out in the infield with a paver.
Yeah, that's where Travis Fisher went to school too. All right, Baz, what are you looking for?
Probably a lot of the same stuff you guys are, the running backs, what emerges there, what does that look like? But this is the easy answer, but it's Adrian, right? Like it has to be. Like how much have we heard about him? He's slimmed down, he's playing with nothing to lose, but yet playing with a lot to prove if you listen to him yesterday. So just obviously he's the guy and it's been made clear he's the guy, but what does that look like? He's been the guy for 3 years now. Obviously going back to his freshman year, he had a battle there to win the starting spot. And last year, Luke McCaffrey challenged him a little bit, but we know he's the guy. We know this year there's not a real challenge there for his starting position. And look, Adrian looks good physically. We saw that yesterday. He seemed really at ease during his podium session when he met with us yesterday. So I want to see what that looks like, on the field, because that's a guy that obviously is critically important to anything Nebraska wants to do this year from a wins and losses standpoint. So I want to see that picture. We got a small window into it in the spring game and got a little bit of it, but what does that look like now that it's here and it's real and he's the guy and we're a month away from a game?
What's interesting, Sipple and Baz, I think like you started to get this sense yesterday, and we talked about it earlier this week on the radio. I think, Sipple, there's really a sense, like I think that there's always a point at which camp feels long, like it's dragging on. You're just players are ready to see another team. Coaches are ready to plan for a team. Fans have waited a long time to see a game. Reporters are ready for something different besides, interviewing guys about camp. But I think that my guess is that moment is going to arrive maybe earlier than ever, especially for the players and coaches this year. And it seems like it's because we can talk all we want about position battles and all that, but really at the end of the day, like this is a season in which the only thing the players said yesterday they care about is just finding a way to win games. It seems like the only thing fans care about is, and we've heard a lot, are they actually better? Have they actually made improvements? Are they actually going to be more detailed? And so it's interesting to me because it's like there are important things that need to happen within the program, whether it's jobs, figuring out jobs, whether it's tailoring a game plan. Like these things take time, they take manpower to do. And yet I think we're going to spend most of the next 4 weeks in it's going to happen. We're waiting for a game, Yeah.
Yeah. Oh yeah. So now as far as the injuries go, Scott shed some light on, he said Honus probably won't be available. Will Honus, senior lineman. Yeah. But he did say Thomas Fedoni might be available later in season. He said that stuff in Indy last week too. Then we kind of went over it again. Marquise Stepp won't be 100% to start camp, which is something to really watch. How far away, it's not like we can tell, but how far away, because we don't see practice very often. How far away from 100% is he, and how quickly can he get to 100% if he can get to 100%? So those are some things to watch.
And Brett, breaking news. Can we play a breaking news siren? Do you have such a thing? Nebraska just picked up a verbal commitment from Valen Erickson, the offensive lineman from Chicago.
Wow, you got to duck out.
I am not. I'm going to duck out here in a minute. Zoom is telling me I can't even minimize this since I'm the meeting host. But I think why don't you guys talk about Adrian? I'm going to stay on, but I'm going to mute myself here so that I can start the process.
It out. Nice work. Hey, give us a quick rundown on Valen Erickson.
Well, he's a guy who he took his official visit the first week of June, and then sort of went quiet in his recruitment after that. Nebraska was, I think, sorting through, sort of where they were at on the offensive line. Jake Mikula is going to make his decision in the next couple of days. He took an official visit. He's probably a Stanford lean, which sort of, I think, put Valen Erickson as the, not that I'm not sure if he had the green light, before that or not, but Nebraska is not going to take very many offensive linemen in this class. He really came onto the scene kind of late in the process, like a lot of kids in the COVID year, but Illinois didn't play its football season until this spring. And so he was so the wonders of live technology. Baz just came into the room here, the conference room, to tell me that the feed had froze. So this will be an interesting podcast when it gets recorded or when it gets published. How much did you hear about my rambling about Valen Erickson?
We didn't hear much about Valen Erickson, the offensive line recruit. Where's he from?
Yeah, he's from Chicago, and he sort of came onto the recruiting scene late because Illinois didn't play their season until this spring. So he picked up offers this spring. He took an official visit to Nebraska the first weekend of June. And Nebraska is not going to take very many offensive linemen in this class. So it was interesting to sort of see how the dominoes fell in that regard. And they fell with Valen Erickson picking Nebraska. He had several other offers, Midwest schools, Big Ten schools. I know Tennessee was in on him. So a guy whose recruitment really took off this spring, and now he's Nebraska's lone offensive lineman for the 2022 class at the moment.
All right, we're going to let Parker go so we can get that typed up and get it on the website for all of you people to consume. Sipple and I will keep this baby going. Let's just move up. Let's just keep on moving, Sip. I mentioned earlier, Adrian Are we going to talk Adrian, or do you want to talk about?
Okay, no, I want to hear your thoughts on Adrian, because you were enamored with Adrian Martinez yesterday.
You and I have both long been enamored with Adrian Martinez, and I thought you wrote a good column today, calling out the haters who have written Adrian off. But I just talked about it a few minutes ago. I thought Adrian looked great physically. I thought he was at ease. Not that he isn't always at ease behind a microphone. That's one of his kind of cool features. He's always been really cool in those settings. But it was just really interesting, I thought, to hear that guy talk about what he's been through at Nebraska, the ups and downs, talk about, I don't have anything. I'm playing like I don't have anything to lose this year.
Yeah.
But also playing like he's got something to prove. I just thought that was interesting. And we saw it at the end of last year. He played some pretty good football. Yes, he continued to deal with the turnover issue, and that obviously needs to get fixed. But that was a guy that when he was going good, he was really good. He was efficient in the passing game. He was strong running the ball. I think we saw in the spring game what he looked like after he trimmed down a little bit, just from a speed standpoint, carrying the football. He's going to have what looks like some better threats at receiver this year. So, I think it's always fascinating with the quarterback at Nebraska, but I think even more so this year with a guy going into his fourth year as a starter who's the clear-cut number one. and who doesn't, or who has some unproven guys behind him. There's a lot of question marks behind him. So his value becomes even greater to this team. So yeah, it feels like Adrian's in a good spot. I think it's just going to be really interesting to watch that develop.
Yeah, the conversation with Adrian's really interesting. It feels like to me that there's not much middle ground. There's people who believe in Adrian and that still think he can kind of capture that magic that he had in 2018. And then there's people just written him off and say he's just not very good, and he won't recapture anything. It doesn't feel like there's much wiggle room between those. I mean, you touched on some things, some reasons why I think that you could see Adrian sort of make this comeback story. I do think now the receivers are unproven. A lot of the receivers are unproven.
Yes.
And we're talking at this level anyway. Samori Toure is proven at the FCS level. Omar Manning's proven at the junior college level. Oliver Martin is somewhat proven. Xavier Betts had 12 catches last year. He's got two really good tight ends that are experienced. And I think all that will help Adrian, as well as an offensive line that could be pretty good. But Adrian himself, Baz, I mean, what I say about him, he's one of the 5 best football players on the team.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. In the way he's the best run. He runs the ball better than anybody on the team. So I think you might be looking at something here. He's got to look at his downfield accuracy wasn't good. The stats, the advanced metrics bear it out. Your eyeballs bear it out. But yeah, I think he could be headed for a big season. I do. I firmly believe that.
I agree with you, Sip. There's some things to sort out. The deep throws certainly is one of them. Obviously, the turnovers, and we talk about that ad nauseum. Just the decision making that maybe leads to a lot of those turnovers or busted plays or what have you. But if he's truly going to play like a guy with nothing to lose, then he's going to play freer, and you have to think that decision making is going to get better. He's going to play with maybe less stress on his shoulders, less weight on his shoulders when it comes to having to make a big play or do some of those things. And maybe he plays like a guy who knows that he doesn't have to carry this entire team with some of those weapons you talked about. If they're able to have a guys, step up at the running back position, if these receivers pan out like we think a couple of them might pan out, then all of a sudden maybe that light bulb goes on that, hey, I don't have to do this all myself. And that can be very freeing, I think.
Oh yeah.
For anybody, no matter the profession, whether you're a quarterback or whether you're a sports writer or whatever you are, that can be a very freeing thing. So yeah, it's going to be fascinating to watch this. And obviously he'll get a good test right out of the gate at Illinois, conference game, all those sorts of things, biggest game of the year, blah, 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 blah. If he can come out there and, set the tone, have a solid game, keep the mistakes to a minimum, lead Nebraska to a win, then maybe I think you're right, Sip. I think he's setting himself up for a really big year.
Yeah. And no, I'm not, I think with a guy like Adrian, he's capable of, if he scuffles a little bit against Illinois, I don't think you write him off. I mean, he's a veteran player who's capable of rebounding. He's shown it. Look what happened last year. Part of the reason I believe in Adrian is because of the way he responded to getting benched. You remember he didn't play against Penn State. He came in late against Illinois, like the last series, and looked good. And that's when I was kind of like, okay, Adrian's a dude. I mean, the guy comes in a mop-up role and comes in firing, looks good, and then comes back and, like you said earlier, finishes the season strong. And he was strong, except for the fumble issue, turnover issue, I guess. So yeah, we'll see what that picture looks like, and we'll just see what the whole thing looks like. We'll get a better idea. They started practice today, and we have availability on Monday, so we'll get a little bit more for the people then.
Speaking of a good picture, who got a good picture last night? That was Delano Benton, the former Nebraska basketball guard, drafted 46th overall by the Toronto Raptors, the hometown franchise, and a history-making pick, as Delano was the first Canadian ever taken in the draft by the Raptors, which I thought was a pretty cool deal, and we were like everybody else when he announced he was going to stay in the draft. I think we all kind of wondered what the thought process was there. Was he hearing something from some teams? Did he have a promise? Those sorts of things. And And clearly he maybe knew something that the rest of us didn't, because he was a top 50 pick in the NBA draft, which is a phenomenal accomplishment, a massive accomplishment. And you consider just some of the talent in this draft, some of the talent in the Big Ten. Delano Benton was picked ahead of Luka Garza, a consensus.
That's amazing.
All-American. It's an amazing, he's right there in the same kind of area as an Io DeSumnu and some players like that. It speaks to what Delano was able to do in the pre-draft process.
Yes, that's what it speaks to, because he didn't get drafted based on what he did at Nebraska.
No, you're talking about a guy that averaged fewer than 10 points a game in one season at Nebraska and got benched at the end of the year. Came off the bench the last 5 games of the year. Wasn't good. He was the guy that maybe struggled more than anybody after the COVID pause. It really affected him, and you could see that. So, yeah, it's a cool story, and it started. Let's not forget, he didn't get an invite to the NBA Draft Combine. He didn't get an invite to the G League Elite Combine until another player, DeJon Jarreau from Houston, dropped out with an injury. That's the only reason Delano got into that. And then he got that, and he sees that opportunity. He took advantage of it, led that deal in rebounds and assists, parlayed that in some workouts, started shooting the ball better. And now all of a sudden you've got a guy that is a pro, was drafted last night.
So, yeah, it's interesting. Now, you've just covered it, so we don't have to go through it, but it's interesting. I think about people, Toronto Raptors fans, waking up in the morning and seeing in the second round, we picked this guy from Nebraska who got benched. Oh, he got benched late in the season. And, oh, by the way, the team won 7 games. I mean, there's some people that are going to say, okay, what is the deal? But you explained it pretty well. And it's not like he showed well at times for Nebraska last season. Even, again, there's a parallel between he and Adrian that's sort of interesting to me. When Benton got benched, he responded well too. You remember late in the season, he didn't play that badly. There was at least one game I remember on the road where he was really getting to the rack. And I thought, wow, the dude's, he's not shooting the ball well, but he's getting to the hole. And he's still playing hard. And that means a lot, after a guy gets benched, to keep coming like that. And I've heard people say since that he is a mature, you could speak to this. I don't know. He's a mature kid.
Yeah. Yeah. Very, very mature. You talk to him and it's clear. The guy's been around a while. He understands the college game, and you're right. Like, put what he did last year in the context of that season. They won 7 games. They had a 3-week COVID pause. They played 15 games the last 30 days of the season. They were playing every other day at the end of a long season with all the COVID stuff going on in empty arenas, playing playing back-to-backs against Maryland, doing all this stuff that not a lot of teams were asked to do. And all of a sudden he's on the bench, and it would have been easy to shut down at that point. And a lot of people maybe would, but he didn't. Even when he was on the sideline, he was a leader on the sideline. He was encouraging his guys. He wasn't pouting, sulking, at least publicly he wasn't. And he did what he could when he got in the game. And that's a credit to Delano and his mentality and his intestinal fortitude to keep that going. And now, like we said, it's paid off, and what a cool moment for him, being a Toronto kid, growing up in the Rexdale neighborhood of Toronto. That's the reason he wore number 45. That was the bus route that ran through his neighborhood in Toronto. That was the number of it. So we'll see what it looks like. Nobody here is saying he's going to be in the NBA this coming season, but he's got a shot. He's got a shot. And if he can develop a consistent jumper, that's a guy that can stick at the top level for a long time.
Yeah, that's the key. And, in one of the pre-draft workouts, as you covered in your story, he hit 68 of 100 3-pointers in a spot shooting drill, and then followed it up in live action with hitting 3 of 6. That sort of stuff gets NBA front office people's attention. And obviously he had he reportedly had a good G League elite camp. He had to have. There's no way there's no way he's getting drafted if he wouldn't have had a good camp and then followed it up with good workouts. And that, again, is a credit to him. Yeah. Now I wish we could have seen that player at Nebraska, but I'm not. I mean, I'm full of congratulations for someone who put in that sort of work and made this happen, bet on himself. Like you said, when he stayed in the draft, yeah, it was a little bit like, what, really? But he bet on himself, and it paid off. And you know, we don't. I guess we should mention this. Obviously, is a good look for Fred Hoiberg, and probably Fred has quite a bit to do with this.
Yeah, and that's something in some of the pre-draft interviews that Delano did. That was something that was brought up a lot. A lot of the stuff he was asked to do at some of these workouts was a lot of stuff Nebraska does in practice as far as drills and stuff like that. And Delano said it. I played for an NBA coach and an NBA system, and it prepared me for those workouts. I didn't go into those with a lot of unfamiliarity. He knew what to expect. And certainly that helped him too. And you're right. All Fred Hoiberg and Matt Abdelmassih have to do is take that clip from Delano and show it to any recruit they bring on campus and say, see, we did it with him, and we can do it.
Got a guy drafted. Now Nebraska has 2 drafted players in the last 3 years. Isaiah Roby in 2019 was drafted 45th, I think.
Yes.
By Oklahoma City. Now that in Roby ended a long drought. Before that, it was Vincent Hamilton.
1999. Right? It was a 20-year drought. Yep. So this is huge for Nebraska in the future. You can take that to a kid like an Isaac Trout and say, look, we did it with Delano Benton. We can do it with you. You can take it to a Jason Green at Miller North and say, look, we did it with Delano Benton. We did it with you. Simeon Wilcher, a top 5 player in the 2023 class. Look what we did with Delano Benton, who was a top 100 player. We got him to the league. You're a top 5 player, Simeon. Look what we can do with you. So, yeah, it remains to be seen how his departure affects Nebraska on this roster, but for future rosters, for recruiting purposes, it couldn't have worked out any better. And the things Delano said have really shed Nebraska in a positive light. And that's the biggest thing to come out of this for the program, certainly.
Yep. So that happened last night at about 11 o'clock, Baz.
It was late. Yeah, it was late. It was after 11. It just takes so long. The first round of the NBA draft takes so long, and then they kind of rip through them in the second round. So, yeah, it's a late night deal. I'm hoping to actually talk to Delano sometime today. I've got a couple messages out. I'm sure he's
another matter that came up today was Lauren Stivrins had a podcast with the setter,
Nicklin Hames.
Thank you, Nicklin Hames, and it was pretty revealing regarding Stivrins' back injury, Baz.
Yeah, it was very, very revealing. And
Lauren Stivrins, of course, is the All-American middle blocker. Now, she has not decided if she's going to play for Nebraska this year, and practice is 2 weeks away. So it's a very interesting story. And she, in this podcast, which I guess is an NIL situation, right?
Not totally sure about that. Yeah, might be. Certainly probably is. But yeah, it was some of the things she said was really fascinating. Just she literally doesn't know what she's going to do. It's a day-to-day injury. We kind of got an idea of the severity of the injury.
We got a clear idea of the severity.
A clear idea, yeah.
She said the last Bass. Here's what she said. We didn't know any of this. I don't think anybody knew this outside of the program, that probably a few people. She said the last 2 months of the season, I wasn't in practice. I only played in the games. I would come in for maybe 5 minutes of practice, and I was doing rehab the rest of the time. It was something I was dealing with for a long time, and I don't think people understand that. She said, I didn't want them to because it's my business. I'm a very private person, which is why it's weird that I'm doing this podcast, etc. She also said that she says she literally remembers waking up the morning of the Baylor game in the NCAA tournament and went to the sports psychologist at Nebraska because, quote, I would wake up and look over at my nightstand and it was just covered in pills that I had to take throughout the day. And she woke up that morning and said, this is just too much. So it's a revealing comment, and it's something that athletes all over the world, I mean, they don't deal with serious back injuries all the time, but that's it. I don't know, as fans, maybe we don't think about that all the time.
You know? Yeah, it's hard being a college athlete, and when you're at the highest level, like Lauren Stivrins is, you're probably managing some type of pain every day, whatever it may be.
Yeah, most of the time.
Most of the time, Lauren's was clearly pretty severe. And like you said, the comment about the pills on the nightstand probably is the most eye-opening thing we saw in that, and gave you a window into maybe what she was dealing with and going through. So yeah, it was really interesting stuff. And it gives you an idea into the psyche of those players having to push through injuries to try and perform for their team and whatever else. And eventually, like you said, like she said, she got to a point where she couldn't do it anymore. She couldn't go out there and do it. And unfortunately for Nebraska, and unfortunately for her, that came in the NCAA tournament. But it just gives you an idea of how hard these athletes push themselves in these situations. So yeah, really, really, really revealing stuff from Lauren Stivrins. Obviously, she's got a decision to make soon. Like we said, the season starts before too long. Excuse me. So we'll see what that means for Nebraska. Even if she decides to come back, she's probably not going to be full go.
No, she says, Bass, she says she hasn't been able to work out at all except in the pool. She hasn't, she's no running yet, no jumping, just pool workouts with practice a couple weeks away. It's really an incredible story.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's on our website, huskerextra.com.
Yeah. huskerextra.com. Check that out. Check out all our football coverage from yesterday. We'll have more coming, obviously, as camp gets underway next week. We'll start with a media availability on Monday morning. That'll be the first one with fall camp officially underway. Stay tuned, obviously, for more coverage. I'm hoping again to talk to Delano Benton today. We'll hopefully get some context from him about being drafted. And as always, we'll keep you up to date on everything going on with the Huskers. And until next time, we'll talk to you soon.